Discover the Our MedTech Lives podcast, where industry experts share their career stories, key achievements, and insights into overcoming challenges in the MedTech field. Hosted by Zilko Rima and Kash Ikram.
Hi everyone. Today we have a real veteran of the medical device and the pharmaceutical industry with over 25 years of experience in various commercial roles, as well as marketing, strategy, and branding. And now, today, he's a principal managing partner at Stragma, an agency that has a great overview of the entire industry. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So without any further ado, welcome, Baba.
Thank you.
Hi, Barbara. Please, can you tell us about your career to date and how you got into the medical device industry?
Yeah, no, great. No, first, thanks for the invitation to participate on this on your platform. I started off with a great interest in sciences when I was growing up, and that led to me studying pharmaceutical science at university. And I went on to start off in the pharmaceutical industry as a pharmaceutical sales rep.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, exactly. And then during the period working as a sales rep, I became exposed to other career opportunities, and I very quickly became attracted to marketing. And I used the few years that I spent as a sales rep to develop myself as a marketeer, and then I managed to enter the industry in this way. But what was interesting is that I actually started off in a IMS at the time, which was a consulting data support for the industry. And from there, I wanted to get into the manufacturing side. So I moved into MedTech with Stryker, which was fantastic. I'm based in Switzerland. I was a brand manager. And right from the start of my journey, always had these roles where I had to work on transformation in terms of changing the thinking about how we market, the way the industry markets. And part of it was because I learned marketing outside of the industry before I started to market in the industry. So I always arrived in the various companies in medtech and life sciences and pharma with these outside thinking about marketing and then trying to blend it in. And I think that is attraction, also add the friction that it brought about. And over the years, as I developed across the industry, I took on, more senior roles till eventually I was, doing roles looking after departments, Europe, Middle East, Africa, trying to transform and turn around and develop marketing teams across the industry. I've been very fortunate that I've been able to work across different parts of our industry, not just MedTech alone.
I remember when I did my first marketing course, we had people from all industries, and they said, it's so boring in MedTech because it's all over-regulated, no creativity. Obviously, you like it.
Yeah, issue of creativity is always one that I found fascinating, that within MedTech, I think we have an enormous amount of regulation in terms of limitation of what we could do, understandably so. Right. But the way I always explain it, it's the rules are clear, and our creativity is about what we can do within the context of what we have, rather than, comparing to what our colleagues in FMCG can do. And frankly, having exchanged with some FMCG marketers, sometimes this, lack of boundaries creates as much problems as it does opportunities.
Yeah, 100%.
Interesting. But now you decided to move to a consultancy business, right? It's Stragma. What are you doing there, and what servicing are you?
Yeah, so in a way, to be honest, first thing is that I feel like I've always been doing Stragma in many ways, if you listen to what I've been saying, because in all the different organizations I've worked in, I've always felt somewhat like an internal change consultant trying to facilitate things. So at Stragma, the 4 key areas that we work on. One is around training and development. So training and development, trying to bring this authentic thinking about marketing. So
Yeah.
the way to think about it is that imagine if we've been doing marketing in a particular way and there's a set template that we're executing. Now imagine that all of a sudden the game changes and we have a blank piece of paper. The only people who can navigate then are those who have some core fundamentals and principles and understanding that they can use. Otherwise, it becomes very, very confusing. So we do training and development for marketing teams. We do work on customer and patient centricity. And this is really about how do we use a focus on customers or patient as a driver for growth, as a way to inspire growth and to help organizations to grow. And then the third part is around helping to bring innovations to market. So bringing disruptive innovation, bringing innovation to market and managing life cycle with insight and with data. And those are the key areas that we work on alongside helping around omni-channel.
Yeah. I mean, you did some research recently at Stragma, interviewing titans of industry. You entitled Mind the Gap, and you did a really interesting webinar. Tell us, what did the titans of our industry see as the biggest issues that were on the horizon and facing our industry?
No, thanks. I think the views from the top report that we ran.
Yeah.
What was so we had 177 very senior executives across the industry that participated, and it's interesting how much consensus there was. So in terms of the issue, what's on the horizon, really, really crystal clear is this point about reimbursement and cost. And what was interesting about it is that when we delved into it, it's really a double-fronted answer, that what they were saying is about how do we demonstrate and extract value in our changing environment, given the pressures on the healthcare system, given the drive for innovation, and given the need. And I think all of these coming together was creating a reimbursement challenge now, and looking down the line, organizations and leaders were seeing this reimbursement issue continue to evolve, and then putting pressure on how we innovate, how we communicate our innovation, and then ultimately making sure that we can extract value for what we bring to market. So that was one of the key areas. The other point was around customer centricity. And again, when we delve into that, that was more about saying which customer, what do we need to know about them, and how do we make sure this insight and this understanding, this intimacy that we need to have with a customer, we can transfer it into something valuable for the organization.
Well, yeah. Can you give us an example of customer centricity? I'm fascinated by this topic.
Yeah. So for example, with around customer centricity, one of the interesting things is when we measured and we asked around how the industry's leaders felt, a lot commented on the fact that they didn't feel that there was a very good understanding of customers. And you would expect that, actually, particularly in our industry where we spend a lot of time with customers, that's somewhat concerning. Now, I think where it plays out is that we have a lot of individualized customer intimacy, customer centricity, customer understanding as a collective at an organizational level, which means that collectively there isn't this same kind of intimacy. With the way that plays out is in terms of do we have understanding of our customers that allows us to be able to segment them, that allows us to be able to put them into different segments depending on what we're needing to do, not at an individual level, but at an organizational level. Do we have enough understanding of our customers to be able to be clear at any given point in time, which is the most important, and what does a proposition look like for them beyond the product? Because often, as you well know, what tends to happen is that our products are so dominant that it does mean that the other side of it, being the customer, is not always taken care of.
Oh.
After all the issues, Baba, what did the Titans see as the biggest opportunities?
So you wouldn't be surprised that despite the fact data around this was gathered some times ago, there were two letters that stood out significantly, which was AI around. And what's interesting is despite the fact that AI was seen as this big opportunity for us, when you delve into it, we looked at how well do we understand AI, what are we doing around it, how might we use it. There we were clearly lacking. So there seemed to be a light understanding that there is this big opportunity, but in terms of a real understanding of how this opportunity would actually play out, that was a little bit less forthcoming in terms of what does it look like and how does it exactly help us to move forward.
It's nascent essentially, right, Baba? And companies are struggling or just need guidance as to where and how they can apply it, where it adds value, right?
Yes,
There's
exactly.
some AI out there that doesn't add value, right? It's just AI and it's amazing, but we're not going to use it.
Exactly.
Interesting. And what about new entrants, especially these non-traditional companies? Because when you think about AI, I think about Google, I think about Facebook, Meta, Musk, Tesla, right? All those things come to mind. Do you see new entrants coming in that not the traditional medical companies or pharma companies?
Well, this was one of the things that ultimately I think that we will have new entrants enter our industry. Now, the regulatory environment makes it really difficult, but there are other pressures that will attract new entrants, not least because there are some very large organizations, some which you've mentioned, that are going to need to find paths to grow. And as we know that our industry does offer some opportunities for that. And I think that the new entrant discussion is much more about thinking about new entrants that will change the dynamics, that will try to answer the questions differently. And Musk and Tesla often comes up, but comes up for good reasons because of the way that they have tried to change the dynamics about the car industry. And in other words, that they've answered the question in a different way. And I don't think we've seen a differentiated enough answer to answer the question that we have within our sector. And at some point, one of these players may enter and try to answer the question differently. And for those of us who are in the industry, the question is for us to see if we could, within, think ahead and be proactive and to reinvent the way that we go about answering our question in terms of products, services, engagement. And even though there has been some evolution, a lot of that has been incremental.
Yeah, I think people not in our industry do eye and envy our profit margins sometimes and think that this is a very profitable business, but it is a low volume, high price business in some cases. Right?
Yes.
Yeah. And that makes us very attractive for market entrants.
Yep, absolutely. The margins definitely don't go unnoticed.
Yeah.
Baba, you did a deep dive into marketing. How would you rate the industry expertise in understanding marketing versus understanding the product?
Oh, well, before you answer that question, right? Let me tell you a story. I went in when I was a youngster, and I was working at a very prominent orthopedic company. long time ago. Thank you, Silke. And I had to present my annual plan. And I thought, let me spice it up. I put a Porter's 5 Forces in, right? And I presented it, and the guys in the room all looked at me and went. One of them turned to each other and went, "What is this? Is this a cashism?" Or like no one had seen it, right? So that was like my introduction to how knowledgeable people were 20 odd years ago of marketing models in our industry. But it's night and day, I think. What do you think?
Well, before I answer, I'll also start with a short story.
Yes.
In two of my roles, I took the role as a marketing director for Euro and the like for two separate organizations, MedTech and Life Sciences. And right at the beginning, very, very early on, within a few days, one of them I got a warning as to whether or not it was likely I was going to be able to survive and keep my job because I was not able to do a very good demonstration with a product.
Okay.
And another one, I was told, unless I gain credibility with the
Right.
engineers and R&D with regards to my level of product understanding, it could
Right.
be difficult. And I say those two things not because I'm saying understanding a product is not important, but it
Right.
is interesting to bring in a allegedly dynamic marketeer who's supposed to help to rejuvenate and bring new, fresh thinking. And
Yes.
meanwhile, the first thing that you tell me is around this issue. Now,
Yeah.
the problem is that we make great product. We've
Right.
always developed great products, and our products solve problems for millions of people across the world.
Yes.
But it is true to say that the side effect of that is that, number one, we've fallen a bit too much in love with our products.
Yes.
And we have forced everybody to also be in love with the product to the extent that other parts suffer. And now we come to the marketing. And that means that marketing as a competency has largely been neglected. So culturally, as an industry, we don't market very well. Now, we market very well for what we need to do, and clearly we're a very successful industry. But we're not, if we were talking about marketing across the board, it would not be an area of strength. And as you saw in the report that we produced, that the Titans also agree that marketing is a weakness, saying only 10%, suggesting the industry was excellent within terms of its standards and level of marketing.
Yeah, we tend to be more product management than marketing, right?
Yes.
And growing up in industry, I always struggled with what I saw in the textbooks and outside what was talking about marketing, what we were doing, until I realized that we were more product management, right?
I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. That a lot of it is around product, which is necessary. Often, the minute you start to talk about marketing versus product centricity, people get their back up because they assume that there's a suggestion that the product is not important. The product is extremely important. We need it. We need even better product. But we do need the competency of marketing. And we need it more now than we've ever done.
Why you say that we need it more now?
Well, a couple of reasons. One, we asked this question in the report, that we asked the level of importance of marketing historically and the level of importance of marketing going forward. And there's a significant rise in expectation. But practically, if I would elaborate on that, it's because the way we've marketed has shifted incrementally over the years. And there has been changes. Digital has come on board and so forth. But that rate of change is moving more from incremental to something much more dynamic, which means that the need to completely rethink how we market, how we engage, how we go to market, how we think about marketing as an industry is growing at an alarming rate.
Yeah, so I'm thinking exactly that. Like, how do we make that jump? How do we bridge the gap? Can we benchmark against other industries? Is that a possibility? Is that something that you researched?
Yeah, so I think that in terms of making the shift, couple of things. There's an element of it which is cultural, which is just in terms of how we think, appreciation of it, what we think it means. There's a part of it which is just core understanding. So this is just about understanding, well, what do we mean by marketing, and giving people tools and techniques that they can use and they can deploy. But also this comes from the top. In the end, it's very difficult to create a modern, authentic marketing culture if it is not what is rewarded, if it's not what is demanded, if it's not what's celebrated. It's about creating this environment. We don't need to market like our FMCG colleagues, but we do need to embrace a lot more of what our FMCG colleagues do than we used to in the past.
Yeah. Goes back to the top silker when you were talking about we're seen as sometimes an industry that can't be created. right? But it's crying out for within the rules. You
Yes.
can be creative.
You can be creative. And I love the football analogy that,
Yeah.
the fact that you play within a rectangle does
Yeah.
not limit creativity. It just means you can do what's allowed. Your creativity has boundaries. And once you know the boundaries, we should definitely do a lot more within the boundaries.
100%.
Where I see a big difference is it depends on who your end customer is, right? Normally we sell to doctors, but I was in aesthetics a couple of years, and there you do direct to consumer marketing as well, which is more emotional and not all this safety stuff. It's safe, otherwise they wouldn't do it. But I think that's a big difference, right? To whom you market your product.
I
At
think
the
it's a
end.
big difference to whom you market your product from the context of how you market and what your go-to-market approach looks like. I don't think it's a big difference in terms of the need for creativity. It is true that normally when you say we need to do better marketing and you push people say, well, what do you mean? They say, well, we need more emotional messages and
Exactly.
I don't mean that. I don't mean that. I mean we can do really good B2B marketing when it's necessary. We could do good B2C. It's about doing what is necessary, but doing it professionally, doing it to a high standards. And I think that you are right that often the minute you start saying do what people think, oh gosh, they want us to go to talk to patients. That's what it is. And you would only talk to patient if talking to patient was relevant, if it's the appropriate thing to do, and if it will have the impact that we're looking for.
I remember when I was in pharma, we did use emotive imaging, right? We used artists, we took from established artists, and we took the messages, the emotions, and we create, the imaging was almost like FMCG marketing, right? But when it comes to MedTech, we take a picture of the product, stick it on the front of the brochure, put its name there, and there you go, right? We may stick a wave in the background, right? Or, hey, it's the new wave. But we do need to get more creative.
Yeah. No, definitely. I think there's room in terms of the creativity and understanding and how we will bring it to bear.
Exactly. Fantastic.
Yeah, how do you think AI is changing the marketing? I mean, you mentioned it several times that AI is the thing now for the Titans. So how is it changing the marketing? When we started, we had brochures, right?
Yes. No, I think that the changes of AI is still very, very early days and it's in infancy. I think there's no question that in terms of marketing that it is going to have a significant impact. But in order for AI to be able to have an impact, first of all, we need to be fully digital. We need to have our data set up and aligned in order to be able to have the impact. But so far, definitely there's a lot around copywriting, there's a lot around analysis, there's a lot that's happening in terms of messaging, in terms of even creativity and enhancing. So far, it's more in the bucket of supporting marketers. There is no question about it that marketing is one of the industries that where artificial intelligence will impact the number of physical people that's required. And I would say that this is interesting from a medtech point of view in the sense that perhaps it may be also an opportunity for us to bridge some of the gaps that we have in marketing faster, because often, as we've mentioned, we do a lot around sales support. We do a lot around product specialism, which we put under the bracket of marketing. Maybe AI would allow us to actually grow in the space of marketing much faster. I think a good example it would be like, so in Africa, when the mobile technology was introduced, it had a profound impact because of the fact that the landline technology was not as established there. So what happened was that the mobile had a big space to move into. And it may be that we find that within MedTech that AI has a big space to move into in the spaces of marketing that we've maybe neglected thus far.
Yeah. So I think the marketeers today, I think there's two things. I think that if you're in the medtech industry, you really need to go and study and observe what's happening outside and try and bring that in, right? Not simply to, fend off AI because you King Canute, it's coming, right? You're not going to be able to, but so you're better able to utilize it. And then, if you're not in the medical device industry and you're a marketeer, we need you, right? Come, bring that skill, bring that viewpoint, bring your experiences to our industry, because our industry is constantly changing and evolving. It will be amazing for that. When I looked at the stuff that your company, Stragmar, has been doing, you talk a lot about omni-channel. And I find this another fascinating subject. Maybe you could give a little bit of a deeper dive on omni-channel, what it means and what it could do for our business.
Yeah, so omni-channel is an interesting topic. During the report that we produced on both occasions, we've explored the topic of omni-channel just to try to see. It's a very topical one. Everybody talks about it. And just to see what's the perception in terms of where people are at. Omni-channel is still probably a topic that in its full potential, very few organizations are there in terms of really using in terms of this full potential. The idea is that both from data, a channel, a service point of view, that all systems are integrated so that the servicing, the communication, the exchange with customers is seamless. Now, a lot of organizations pretend as if we can go from what we do today to omni-channel tomorrow. And the reality is that it's a journey. It's a journey that we all need to go on, because there will come a point in time that omni-channel would be the only viable way in order to be able to engage with customers. But the reality is that most of what gets talked about as omni-channel are probably more better described as very sophisticated multi-channel. So when the engagement that we do around omni-channel, typically one of the things we say is that it's a vision that's supported by technology. It's a vision. So it's a vision about how we engage with our customers and our desire to serve them in a frictionless way. And then technology, data architecture are put in place in order to support an infrastructure where that can take place, which means that we have a seamless engagement and communication with our customers. I think that it is a much more bigger, longer journey than often we portray it to be. And certainly it's not the kind of scenario that's delivering a return on investment in a few months.
Well, I have a definition question. When you talk about customers, whom do you mean? Because you're now in an agency, you're not in a company. What is your definition of customer?
I love this question because I ran a very big customer centricity project a couple of years ago. And we spent a long time on this topic. Who's the customer? And we went round and round and round. And in the end, the conclusion for this particular organization in their context was that the reality is that there was no one customer. The customer was a network of healthcare professionals, stakeholders, governmental institutions, and so forth. However, in the center was a patient.
Right.
Now, the patient was not the customer. The patient, if you like, was the consumer. But ultimately, it was this network of these professions that were the customers. Now, in every context, is then for the organization to decide who are the most important ones. Who's the ones who decide, who pays, and how do we engage with them? But certainly, I think it's fair to say that customer, whilst it sounds like a singular word, is definitely much more about a network of people rather than an individual.
Exactly. I mean, let's expand on that for people who maybe don't know our industry, right? So let's take a knee replacement. It's not the patient who decides which knee replacement they're going to get, right? And sometimes it is the surgeon, but sometimes it's done at a purchasing department level where they say, okay, we're going to buy all these type of knee replacements. They put it out to tender and a company wins. So that's that. So then you have a surgeon, you have a purchasing department in a hospital that sometimes is very big and can be a very professional purchasing department. But even the purchasing department is getting their money from somewhere else, right? And that's the hospital is getting its money either through a reimbursement from the government or from an insurance company. So they're in this customer group, right? In this network of
Yes.
customers. And, ultimately, so it's and in the middle of it is the patient. And you got to figure out, well, who is making the key decisions that end up with this product ending up in the shelf on the hospital, ready to be used in the patients, right?
But Kesh, I wouldn't underestimate the patient, because today we saw people coming with binders full of papers.
Yes.
This is the implant I want. And if you don't offer this in this hospital, I go to someone else. So I think we should not think the customer is not educated, right?
Yeah,
The
in
patient.
some businesses like aesthetics, right? It is patient. Very patients can go in and choose, right, what they want, and
But
they
I was
can
thinking
choose
about
which
heart
center.
valves.
For what? Sorry.
When I was in cardiac surgery and selling
Yeah.
heart valves, they knew exactly which heart valve they wanted. Otherwise, they would not go to this hospital. So
Yes, I
I think
agree,
the
but some
education
people
is
don't
not
have a
where it
choice.
was.
Some, depending on where you live geographically, like Baba and I are from the UK, we don't have a choice, right? That's your local hospital. That's where you go. If you want to go anywhere else, there's the private sector, right? So yeah, it's
But still, this is an option, right? And I think
yeah,
education of patients has really increased. I mean,
Yes.
before it was just like relying on the doctor. If the doctor's saying
yeah,
this is what you
Well,
need, you accepted it. Today, it's a little different.
yeah,
correct.
I think maybe it's a good opportunity to make a point that one of the things as well is that when we talk about we need to be better at marketing, part of it is about when do we start what we call marketing? And I
Yes.
think we need to start marketing further up the food chain, further up the ladder. So somehow, I always think, right, they go, well, we got these networks of customers. There's so many different ones. One's got the budget. It's so complicated. There's so much friction. The answer to the question still comes down to the better the proposition, the clearer the answer is for the question, you
Yes.
reduce the friction.
Yes.
One of these stakeholders will be so motivated, they will help to reduce the tension that the network produces. So there is still this element that we can get over a lot of complexity by coming up with really clear propositions for the right segment of customers.
Yes. Yeah. And I don't want to give the impression that a hospital won't have the product they need to treat you. It's just that if it's a rotating knee or if it's a posterior cruciate sparing knee, they will have one. It's just they may not have the brand that you downloaded on the internet, right? Or the heart valve from that company. They'll have the same type of heart valve, but from another company, right? But the hospital will be equipped with everything.
How about internal marketing? Because at the end, you can be great in marketing, but the salespeople transfer the message being in the field, right? So how do you make sure that they deliver the messages you want them to deliver?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in some ways I'm old school. I've worked in sales, and also in marketing, and I see sales as a part of the marketing umbrella. And in an industry where we invest so much in sales support, in product specialists, I think that maybe we don't always do enough to coordinate these activities under the so-called marketing umbrella. And I think it's critical and really important to engage the sales team, sales force, not to tell them, but to win them over, to persuade them, to get them to be true believers. And I think often, maybe sometimes we make the mistakes of giving them instructions in terms of what they're supposed to do. And whether it's right or wrong, it's important that the field force believe in terms of what we're trying to deliver, because it comes across and customers could tell the difference when they're reciting something or rather than when they're actually telling a message about something they actually believe in. I think it's critical. Our sales force is and engaging them. And that means spending time. And I think a lot of engagements that we do, I always want to engage and get the perspective of the field force. Always want to see, okay, but what did the field force think? And whether it's by a survey or focus group, field visit, to bring that in and to see the contrast in it, because it's important.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. So to recap a bit, what you found is that we need to be more agile, closer to this is you test if I've learned from you, right? So we need to be more agile, closer to the customer. We need to elevate our marketing capabilities so that our industry can keep up, right?
Keep up.
Those are
Yeah, there's no question. Complexity, the more, Professor Malcolm McDonald's, I remember sitting through one of his lectures, and he said, geez, I feel sorry for you guys. And this was like 10, 15 years ago. He said, in my days, we just booked more TV time and job was done. And marketing was about getting the TV advert, book more TV time. It was a very, very simple single channel message scenario. What we're dealing with now is much more sophisticated and complicated, and therefore it does require a more professionalism, not about understanding channels. We have a lot of people that understand how a particular digital channel works and they talk you through it. And then you say, explain that to me again, how that works in terms of customers. I know the numbers, I could tell you about the conversion rate, but ultimately we miss the bigger story of the digital is a reflection of what's going on in the real life, and we need to make the connection better and have a really good understanding. I think that's really critical.
I met Mr. McDonald. He has a great sense of humor. I remember I was very long time ago, I was sitting in a meeting and the guy next to me was chatting to me and said, that was a terrible presentation. I was like, yeah, it was really bad. And then the person at the front said, and now our keynote speaker, Mr. Mark McDonald. And he got up, went, my turn. I was like, oh my God, it's you. Great sense of humor, lovely guy. Fantastic.
So, Baba, with all the experience you have, and we really appreciate that you share so much with us, what are the 3 things you know now that you wish you would have known then? And which advice would you give to young marketeers to start in the industry or maybe to join Stragma?
Yeah, so I would say number 1 is to keep learning. Keep learning. Things are always changing. And often I say, if you're not noticing any change, guess where the problem is? It's not the fact that things are not changing, it's the fact that your ability to observe and to react to it is not there. That's really, really critical. That keeps you fresh, that keeps you up to date, that makes you close and relevant. So I think that's really critical. I think the second point is around insights. And insights is one of these things is banded around and everybody's got insights all over the place. The reality is that true insights are difficult. And however, when you do uncover true insight, double down on it. Really go after it. Put a program around it. Drive it with purpose. And I would say that a few times looking back, I would think there were even successful initiatives that I wished I'd 10x'd rather than doubled down on in terms of ability to go after it. And the final one, which I think is particularly pertinent for our industry, is this point about don't be insular. Don't be insular. It's very, very difficult to adopt ideas from people. We can't do that in our sector.
Right.
Why would you expect to do it exactly like they do it? That's why it's a different sector. So you have to really understand it. During the period of time when I was a marketing lecturer on a part-time basis for about 10 years during my career. And one of the things I learned from that is that I'll be in a classroom and there'll be someone from financial services, someone from pharmaceuticals, someone from technology, and so forth. And they'd ask a question, and you would have to bring it to life and to make it relevant in their sector, in their arena. And that's what we need to do. We should not expect to go and find ready-made solution that we could just pluck and implement. We need to understand those initiatives. how they've used it to answer questions. And when we bring it, we need to adapt it, but we must not be insular. We must look outside. We are different. We are special, but we do need desperately to learn. And some of the problems we're struggling with, our colleagues to the left, to the right of us, solved them many years ago.
Yeah. Baba, this has been super insightful and absolutely fascinating. Thank you very much. How can people contact you and Stragma to explore these ideas more?
So look, so on stragma.com, there's routes there, an opportunity to contact. I am available, always happy to connect with people on LinkedIn, and I love engaging in discussion about how our industry can grow, can do things differently, can solve some of the challenges that we see on the horizon, and take advantage of opportunities. So it's always a pleasure. And when you kindly reached out as you participate on your platform, it's always a pleasure to find an opportunity to discuss. And yeah, we're always open to that. And that's what Stragma aims to do. And the G in Stragma is about growth, and it's about making sure in any initiative that we engage with, we can tell a story and point out with evidence about how we are helping to drive and to achieve growth for our customers.
Thank you so much, Baba, for joining us today. We really felt your passion for marketing. I'm sure people will reach out to follow up with you. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it.
So much.
Thank you.
You're a gentleman and a scholar, and I will continue to keep learning, even at my age.
You're a young man. You're a young man still. Appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning into our MedTech Lives. You have been listening to Zilka Rima and Tash Ikram. We're committed to bringing you insights and stories that inspire and inform the medical community. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your network.